Hello loves and welcome to today's video. So I've been planning to go to Niagara Falls with some of my friends since 2020. You can maybe imagine why we didn't get to go in 2020. We are finally getting around to it this year. And as an added bonus, my sibling, who lives in a completely different part of the country than I do, is going to be in Toronto, which is close enough to Niagara Falls that I will get to see them. So to celebrate seeing my sibling for the first time in 9 years, I think it is, I am going to read some books that they recommended to me. Some are going to be books that they have kind of mentioned over the past that they think I should read. And then I did also ask them to make some recommendations. So there is a list that they gave me all at once. So I'm going to start this vlog now before the trip, and we will see how many of their suggestions that I get through before I return from my trip. So the first book that they have mentioned to me they think I would like and I'm going to be reading is Devil House by John Darnielle. This is about a man who is writing a true crime book about this satanic panic killing, and to do research for it he has actually purchased the house where it happened and is going to be living there while he is writing his story. I did buy this from Book Outlet like a year and a half ago because I thought the cover was pretty cool, so I am very happy to finally get around to reading this and getting this off the on-read shelf. So let's get started. So I have finished part 1 of Devil House and started part 2. I'm about 100 pages in, just a couple pages shy. Part 1 is entirely about the author and him having his first impressions within the house and giving a little bit of backstory on both him as an author and his previous true crime works, and then a little bit of backstory on the town that Devil House is in and its previous owners prior to it being dubbed the Devil House. A little bit of a slower start, but I am interested to see what we're building to now having established the backstory. The one notable thing for me from part 1 of this book is the town that Devil House is in. There is also another very popular murder that happened in that town in real life, and the author keeps referencing a movie that they made about that murder, and that movie happens to be River's Edge, which is a movie that Keanu Reeves is in very early in his career. It's a movie from the 80s. And in those first 55 pages of the book, they reference River's Edge no less than 5 times. And I am not saying, sentence 1, sentence 2, that's 2 mentions. I am saying paragraph 1, pages, paragraph 2, separate references. 5 separate times do they mention River's Edge, and don't mention Keanu Reeves. The closest we get in those first 55 pages is, sure, the actors were mainly gorgeous Hollywood types. That can't be helped. Yeah, you want to know who the gorgeous Hollywood type is? Keanu Reeves. So if you weren't aware, I'm a Keanu Reeves fan. My Bill and Ted poster is right behind me, and I keep a spreadsheet tracker of all the books I read that mention Keanu Reeves. I'm up to like 7 books so far this year. Do I count this? Because it mentions a Keanu Reeves movie 5 times, but it doesn't mention him by name. So am I counting that for my spreadsheet? Because I do try to avoid just like too generic of references including in the spreadsheet. So we'll see if by the end of this book I do consider this to be a Keanu Reeves reference. So I've now finished part 2 and part 3 of Devil House. So in part 2 we get the story of the White Witch, which is referenced in part 1 as one of Gage Chandler, the true crime author's previous books, and this is about a teacher who is accused of killing her students, and you find out how that whole thing came to be. Then chapter 3 is about what happened in the Devil House. So the Devil House used to be a porn store, and then the porn store closed down and all the inventory was left in it, and then these teenagers move into it and we go from there. I am enjoying the way this is written so far. The next part is called Song of Gorbonian and is in this like fake gothic font. So I am interested to see what's up with that, though it does look annoying to have to read. Hopefully I can wrap this up tomorrow and we will have at least 1 book recommended by my sibling that I will have finished reading before seeing them. Alright, I have a few updates. First is that I did finish Devil House by John Darnielle, and this book was way different than what I was expecting it to be. With a title like Devil House and true crime writer goes to site of satanic panic killing, I was expecting ghosts, demons, spooky things. Now it's not what this was. So there was kind of three main plot threads within this book. The first was about the true crime author and him going to the Devil House and his personal process of uncovering information, and he writes books. The second was about the narrative of one of his past books, The White Witch. Then the third through line was the Devil House narrative. In the 6-7 parts, you get one of each of those narratives that is basically from that author's perspective, and then you get each of those narratives from the perspective of an outsider. So you get an idea of, here's what this guy thinks happens, and then here's how someone else would view the situation. So it was very much about how the same set of facts and information can be viewed differently by different people, how even leaving out one point of view can skew the interpretation of events, and really a critique of true crime, in my opinion, of the way events are sensationalized, not necessarily to show the full events, but to get the most drama out of the events. So there were certain points where the true crime author's telling of events is clearly building up sympathy for either the victim or the perpetrator, but then you get a different perspective and it shows that while that person is still deserving of sympathy, that the opposite is true as well. This was really well written. The only kind of critique I would have is there is a section in the middle that's like in fake medieval speech, and that didn't really add anything and was a pain in the ass to read, so I would have nixed that if I was the editor. But overall, really well written, really good points being made, and also all three of those narratives were interesting on their own, so the fact that I got to read all three of them in just one book, loved it. Rating wise, this ended up getting a 4.5. Just had some points knocked off, like I said, for that weird middle section that was in fake medieval speech. So far, my siblings' recommendations doing well. The other update is that I started the audiobook of one of my siblings' other recommendations, which was Milk Fed by Melissa Broder. Their original recommendation was technically the Pisces, but when they gave me their list, I was already in the process of reading the Pisces. So they gave me a different Melissa Broder to read. So I'm now reading Milk Fed. I'm about an hour and a half into the audiobook. So far, our main character is someone who has struggled with an eating disorder because of the critiques that their mother had of their body growing up. They are in therapy trying to deal with their mommy issues, and then also we're getting a lot of descriptions of like disordered eating habits they still have. That is something you cannot read in books. Milk Fed is not going to be for you. So I am interested to see where it goes from here. There's some weird mommy issue stuff that she's like projecting into a crush on her therapist, which is kind of weird so far. So we'll see, because the Pisces certainly was an adventure in unlikable narrators, so we'll see. So now that I finished Devil House, the next book I'm going to read is Split Tooth by Tanya Tagak. This is a poem, and that is all I know about it. So we'll see how that goes. I don't read an awful lot of poetry. It's just not something I'm usually drawn to. So this is a expansion of my comfort zone, and we'll see how that goes. I just got to 36% of Split Tooth, and what the fuck did I just read? I signed on for poetry about Nunavut and Inuktitut people. Why did I just read about a girl giving a fox a blowjob? What is happening here? Yes, it is told in some very poetic, beautiful language, but what the fuck is happening? I'm lost. You lost me. So I finished Split Tooth, and that certainly is a book that I have now read. I don't quite know what to think about it. There was some weird ass shit in that book. Like, weird. Started kind of normal. I kind of got where it was in the beginning. It was like telling the story of this girl who lives in Nunavut, and it was kind of contrasting her experiences growing up with some like poetry of some of the mistreatment that Indigenous people face in Canada. I was on board for that. And then the fox blowjob happened, and it got really off the rails from there. And I did text my sibling about it because, you know, they're the ones who recommended it to me. And it's apparently a creation myth for a new age built on the broken pieces of something. I don't know if I can see that past the fox blowjob. I'm kind of very distracted by that. So let's figure out through all that what I will actually rate it. I'll get my spreadsheet up. Character, obviously we have the main character, the narrator, and we get glimpses of some other characters, like her parents, the best boy, which is like her boyfriend at one point, and then this like elderly woman, Helen, but we don't really go in depth on most of the other characters, just mainly focusing on the main character. And she did have some interesting things. I'm going to give it a 4 for character. Atmosphere, I am going to give a 4. So the book is set in Nunavut, and I've never personally been there, but from what I know, it did capture some of the beauty of the landscapes. It mentions the Northern Lights significantly. If you've read it, that was certainly atmosphere building. We'll get to that plot-wise in a second, but definitely atmosphere building was there. I'm going to give that a 4. Writing style, I'm also going to give writing style a 4. I did like the prose and how that was written, but there were the poems that kind of appeared randomly throughout, and while I was enjoying them at the beginning, some of them towards the end kind of made me feel like how I feel when song lyrics are in books. This isn't adding to the plot, it's just pretty words on a page, and maybe I'm just not understanding the poetic merit of it. Again, I don't read a lot of poetry, and I just kind of wanted to get back to the WTF-ery that was the plot of this book. So, writing style 4, because I could have done without some of those poems. Now, plot. How do I talk about this plot without spoiling it? So, like I said, there's this girl who's growing up in Nunavut, and we follow, like, her childhood years, and it does touch on childhood abuse, and alcoholism, and residential schools, and a lot of those topics that are important to know about the history of Canada and the impacts that has had on those communities. But then the plot. I'm gonna give the plot a 4 because I was interested in it, but it was kind of a WTF plot. So I am going to go now into the spoilers. I will timestamp when the spoilers are over if you want to skip over to the intrigue rating. Spoilers now. What the fuck was that? She gets knocked up by the Northern Lights and then gives birth to twins, one of whom, like, sucks the life out of her male family members. What was going on with that? I clearly do not understand the deeper poetic meaning behind it. I was distracted by how fucking weird it was. It definitely was interesting. Some WTF-ery for me. I'm giving it a 4, not a 5, because it was still a pregnancy trope, and I hate the pregnancy trope. My sibling should know that. Alright, spoilers over. Intrigue, I'm going to give a 5. Based on the spoilers of the plot, I won't go into details again about that, but I needed to know what the fuck was going on in this book, and that definitely kept me going. It was thankfully a very short book, so I didn't have to wait very long to find out what was going on. But yeah, definitely intriguing. Logic relationships. This is where I'm gonna give a 3 There was not really a lot of relationship building in this book. And as for the logic, I didn't know what was going on half the time. I just was along for the ride. And again, maybe I'm just not smart enough. Maybe I'm not getting the subtleties. Especially the ending of it, like the ending. I didn't get the logic of that decision. If it had been me, I would have moved. Out of context, new targets. 3 for that for me. Enjoyment, I'm gonna have to give this a 4 because I did kind of enjoy, even if I was confused. That puts the average of this book at a 4. Sibling is doing well so far. No 5 stars, but 4s, so that's good considering how harsh I am on books. Now, I have a train to catch at 8:30 tomorrow morning, so I'm gonna go to bed now, and I will update you probably when I get to my hotel tomorrow. Train journey 1 is complete. I didn't get like any footage because it is so unbearably hot that I am gross and sweaty just existing, so all the walking around I didn't want to film that. I look gross. However, I have some updates. Update 1, on the train I finished 55% of Juliet Naked by Nick Hornby, which was my sibling's next suggestion. This is about Duncan and I can't remember her name. Are this couple, they're like late 30s, early 40s, and Duncan is obsessed with this one rocker dude who like gave up on music in the 80s, and the book is set in like early 2000s. So he's obsessed with this dude who hasn't made any new music in like 20 years. And then some like unreleased music of this guy comes out, and his girlfriend doesn't like it, but she writes a very articulate review for it that kind of makes the guy Duncan jealous that he can't articulate as good as her. And then it causes the guy who's been like off the radar for 20 years to reach out to her. So it's about like Duncan and this girl, the woman's relationship kind of falling apart as they realize maybe they don't have as much in common as they originally thought. We're kind of maybe just staying together out of convenience after 15 years. So I'm enjoying that so far. I am interested to see where that goes. I am a little concerned because the woman's like main gripe with Duncan is that she wants to have a kid and he doesn't. I'm like, please, I don't want pregnancy in this book too. I dealt with the pregnancy in Split Tooth because it was kind of a weird pregnancy. On to other things. In Toronto, there's a horror bookstore called Little Ghosts, and I have been following them on Instagram for like 2 years, and every time I'm in Toronto, I'm like, I want to go. And then it doesn't work out. It's too far from where I'm staying. It's not working schedule-wise. So I finally got to go. And I walked in, and first, I wanted to get this t-shirt that I saw on their Instagram, and it's no gods, no billionaires, hail indie bookstores, Little Ghosts, and I love it. I'm obsessed, and I'm so glad that they still had it in stock. I was worried it was going to sell out before I got to it. And then I did walk in, and because it is a bookstore that I follow on social media, I kind of trust the people in the store to know what's good or not. I walked in, I was like, I want some good for her horror. I want some horror where like the female character is doing some weird stuff, but you're like, good for her. So the first recommendation was True Crime by Samantha Kolesnik. And this is about a woman who grew up in a very abusive family, and then she starts becoming a serial killer. So interested to see that. Next is Crossroads by Laurel Hightower. This is about a woman whose adult son dies, and then she accidentally ends up summoning his ghost. And I have heard some good things from, I think Jordaline liked it. I'd have to double check that. And I'm excited to read this. Then there was The Wild Dark by Catherine Silva. This one is about an unearthly forest that starts to swallow up the world, and also ghosts start showing up. And this one is signed by the author, and I'm like, I'm here. I'm probably not going to be able to find a copy of this signed ever again. I may as well. So those were the 3 recommendations that I took from the employee at the store whose name I didn't get and I feel bad about. And then Logos also has a little publishing company and publishes some of their own, and I saw this and I couldn't leave without it, and that's Demons and Death Drops, an anthology of queer performance horror. And like, with that cover, and it's an anthology, which means I can try out a bunch of authors I haven't read before and get a little snippet and taste to see if there's other authors I'd want to explore. It's Pride Month, so queer horror, let's go for it. Demons and Death Drops, how do you not read that book? I did some sleuthing on Instagram, and based on context clues, I believe the person who helped me was Chris Krawczyk, who edited this collection. So thank you, Chris, for the recommendations. I'm very much looking forward to reading them. And then I did also get a free bookmark and a sticker that I put in this book so I didn't bend it, that says Villain Lover. How cute is that? And it says @Radical Buttons on the back, so I'm assuming that's the artist. If you want to check them out, I definitely will be. And then the last thing, which is not a book, but was a gift from my sibling. As my sibling did recommend Devil House to me, which just edged me the whole time with mentioning River's Edge and not mentioning Keanu Reeves by name. They did make it up to me, my sibling did, because they found me a 1993 copy of Sky International starring Keanu Reeves naked, and it does deliver on that promise. So thank you to my sibling for making up for the lack of Keanu references in Devil House with something better. Tomorrow I am meeting up with my friends in Niagara Falls. So I do have some time tomorrow before they meet me, so I will probably try and finish Juliet naked tomorrow morning. We'll see how it goes, and I will provide you more updates then. So, made it to Niagara Falls. We were surprised with a little fireworks show outside of our hotel window last night, which was very lovely. Yesterday on the bus here, I did finish Milk Fed by Melissa Broder. In Milk Fed, our main character, Rachel, I think her name was, she starts the book being like very disordered eating, where she like can only eat the frozen yogurt if it doesn't go over the top, and she can't have any toppings on it and all of this stuff. And she meets this Orthodox Jewish woman and they get into a relationship, but obviously she's like Orthodox Jewish, so they have to hide it from her parents. And as she grows into that relationship, she kind of starts to heal from her disordered eating, but then also there's a conflict with the Orthodox Jewish family because Rachel's very pro-Palestine. I don't know what the book was trying to do. It tried to do too much is my thought. Pick a struggle. I think it is the point of like having the character struggle. The struggle is the point, but I just found it couldn't adequately address any of the struggles because it was trying to address too many struggles, you know? So I give that one a 3.25. Maybe Melissa Broder's just not for me. And then this morning, I had one chapter left in Nick Hornby's Juliet Naked when I went to bed last night, and I finished it this morning. Tucker is like this really deadbeat dad, the rock star. He has like 5 kids with 4 different women. I can see some of the points the book was trying to make about like separating art from the artist and how artists are sometimes too close to their own work to see its own merit. Also like being stuck in a rut and things like that. I gave this one a 3.75. So the character Duncan, who is absolutely obsessed with this rock star, kind of seen as the bad guy in the book. Like, I feel like it's written like you're not supposed to identify with him, but I identified with him so hard. If I was in a relationship and my partner started randomly communicating via email with Keanu Reeves and then didn't tell me, we've been dating 15 years. You are in email communication with the person that I am obsessed with, whose career is fascinating to me, and you don't tell me? And Duncan's supposed to be the bad guy? I, by the end, hated Annie. There's something she does in the very last chapter, which I kind of get that they foreshadowed what she wanted at the beginning of the book, but I don't like the means with which she went to try to achieve that. Tucker, still a deadbeat dad, but I think he was a bit more sympathetically written. Ooh, I didn't like Annie. Annie really bothered me. The way the book was written felt like I was supposed to identify with Annie's struggles and understand her a lot more than I ended up doing, and then also disagreeing with her decisions. There is some intrigue here with like the will they won't they with Annie and the rock star Tucker. This kind of felt like a deconstructing of the manic pixie dream girl tropes, because Annie is just like a middle-aged woman who works in a museum, and she's never treated like she's some kind of fantasy object by either Duncan or Tucker, which in like traditional manic pixie dream girl media would absolutely be treated as special and unique, or in a traditional romance novel, rock star would be treated a lot differently in the like the fanfic way, if you know what I mean, like the Harry Styles fanfic way. That didn't happen either. He's very much a flawed individual, and his celebrity is used more in a negative light than a positive light, but not in the fake contrived, like, oh, we can't go anywhere because we're hounded by the paparazzi. I did enjoy some of those elements. I can see what it's trying to do. I just didn't particularly like how Annie was written and how Duncan was written, so that took me out of it. I am interested to watch the movie now, because according to my sibling, the movie is maybe a bit kinder to Duncan than the book is, so maybe I'll watch that at some point. As to what I'm reading next, we've hit a bit of a snag, because I have 2 books checked out from the library that were intended to be for this challenge for their recommendations. One was Still Life by Louise Penny, which is the first in some kind of random detective series, and that one didn't port over to my Kobo correctly, so I have no way to actually access it to read it while I'm here. The other one is White Teeth by Zadie Smith, and I did open that book this morning, and then your Kobo does the little thing where it's like, this is how long it's going to take you to read. That said it was going to take me 12 to 13 hours, and I don't think I'm going to have 12 to 13 hours of reading in me by the end of the week. Even the audiobook is 19 hours, and I don't know if I can do that. This seems like a very heavy literary book, and I don't think I have that in me for the rest of the weekend. So I'm gonna cheat a little bit. Way back before I read Trust of the Emerald Sea, my sibling recommended Elantris to me because I mentioned I wanted to read Brandon Sanderson, and this is technically his first published one. It can also be read as a standalone, because that was my thing, was I didn't want to go into Brandon Sanderson starting book 1 of the long ass series. So this one technically can be read as a standalone, though it is part of the larger Cosmere universe. I did bring the physical book with me just in case like my Kobo died, or I was somewhere without power or something. So I think I'm gonna read this next, because I just don't know if I have it in me to read White Teeth. I'm currently very intimidated by it, so I'm not sure I'm gonna feel it. So I am home now, as you can tell. It is also fully almost 2 weeks later. I have been desperately trying to finish Elantris so I can have a nice even 5 books in this video, but it is taking me a while to get through. I got a new tattoo last week, so I was just fucking wiped all weekend. I did get halfway through Elantris, so I'm on page 330, and I am really liking it so far. So we're following kind of 3 storylines. There's this like prince who lives in this city, and he gets this like disease where he basically turn into like a walking corpse, and then he gets basically exiled into the city where everybody who gets this disease goes. And this city used to be this really beautiful utopian society with these godlike creatures, and now instead of turning godlike, you turn zombie-like. And then there is the princess that he was intended to marry, who like shows up in the city and is like, wait, my husband's dead? Because they just say he's dead. They don't say that he has this disease, because they're trying to like hide the spread of the disease. And then there was like a clause in the marriage contract where if either of them dies before they actually get married, they're like de facto married anyway. So she literally never even met her husband in person and is now a widow, and she is trying to adjust to living in this new city to try and like maintain the trading contracts between her lands and this new land that she was marrying into. She's kind of figuring out her role within this city. And then the third timeline is this like priest dude who is trying to like mass convert the city into his specific brand of religion. It's so very Catholic coded because there's like this one person on earth who is the sole voice for God. And I'm like, so Catholic coded. The religious one is my least favorite of the three perspectives so far. It feels like that person's gonna be the villain, but it hasn't been like outright anything like that. And that guy's trying to convince people to join his religion by claiming that these like walking corpse people are like demons on earth. I am really enjoying this so far. I love the prince character. I love the princess character. Again, the religious guy, like, I'm never really gonna like a character that's like so zealotous with their religion. I am gonna try and finish this in this video, but that just means this video might not wrap up for another 2 weeks because it did take me 2 weeks to get even halfway through this book. Not because I'm not interested in the book, not because it's like too slow of a read, but just because I got like other things going on. I had to stop reading this to read a book club book, and like I said, getting a tattoo fucking wiped me. I will give you some more updates once I have finished this. Still reading Elantris, and I just really loved this line. So there's like an eclipse going on. There was something beautiful about the pale-faced goddess of the heavens, a mysticism to her eclipse. It was as if she really were disappearing for a time, traveling to another place as opposed to just falling into the planet's shadow. Rathan could almost feel her magic. Hell yes, you could feel her magic. That's my girl Artemis, even though different mythologies are technically not Artemis, but that's my girl Artemis. So I'm here with some wet hair, and I feel this vlog is getting away from me the further I get from my trip. So I have some prep stuff I have to do tonight because I'm doing a volleyball tournament tomorrow. So you get to hear my final thoughts on Elantris while I braid my hair. I did finish Elantris like 6 days ago. I feel like my end of year wrap up is just going to be, here is all of the books I liked this year, Brandon Sanderson and House of Leaves. Because well and truly, Elantris, not the same as Tress of the Emerald Sea. I will say that. It's not quite as good as Tress of the Emerald Sea. It is a very different kind of fantasy. It definitely has heavier lore than what Tress of the Emerald Sea did, but damn can Brandon Sanderson write. Did it probably a very poor explanation of the plot in my last update, but essentially there's this city that's being run by this king, and it is right next to the city where there used to be these godlike figures. But 10 years ago, these godlike figures lost their godlike powers, and now anyone who like ascends to the godhood, instead of having like immortality and magic powers, they're just like walking corpses who keep their injuries. So they're immortal, but you stub your toe, you are forever going to be feeling that stubbed toe. Our main character, Ryoden, is the prince of the city, and he gets this illness and gets shunned into Elantris, the city of the corpses. And his soon-to-be wife, who now is his de facto wife because he's considered dead, shows up at the city, and she is like trying to adjust to life in New City where she was supposed to marry this guy and she didn't. But also she's really smart in terms of like political machinations. So she is trying to manipulate the king and also the religious people in the city, basically to survive, really. And then the religious sect, there is this guy who comes into the city, and he is from a specific sect of the religion where they worship this deity on earth, basically the Pope. And he is trying to warn people that if they don't convert, the city will be invaded. And he tries to leverage the Elantrians, the like walking corpse people, as a way to convince people that his religion is the right one. Characters, stunning. First of all, I was able to keep track of all of them. Stunning for me, because there were a lot of characters and I was able to keep track of all of them, which is rare for me in a fantasy book because I do really struggle with character names. Also, even like the character that you're not supposed to like, in my opinion, Harathan, he was really well written, where like even though I don't agree with him, I still understand where he's coming from. So all of the characters, 5 out of 5 stunning. The ones I liked, I really liked. The ones that even I didn't like, I at least understood their motivations. So characters, well written. Atmosphere. The world building here, that's what Brandon Sanderson's known for, let's be honest. All of the world building was impeccable. Understood the politics that were going on, which again, sometimes I struggle with that in fantasy novels, of like, what are all of these fake countries and how do they relate to each other? Understood all of that. I liked the city of Elantris, how it's like, was this once utopian society basically. Now it's fallen apart, but it's still hidden underneath. There's so much about the city and the lore of this world that Brandon Sanderson hints at and is so ripe for expanding on in future novels. Like, mwah, chef's kiss. Atmosphere, 10 out of 10 or 5 stars. Writing, it's Brandon Sanderson. If this was his first novel, are you kidding me? The writing was impeccable. There were so many lines that just like hit me. Absolutely, 5 stars again there. Plot, again, so interesting with these 3 different plot lines we were following and how they ended up overlapping and crossing over with each other. Stunning. Intrigue. I wanted to know what was going on with like this religious war and also the like return of the magic, and that was the concern of the prince guy, is like the Elantrians, when they did this transition thing, they used to end up with magic. So what happened to the magic that they used to be godlike and now they're these like walking corpse things? I was so interested by that the whole time. It was 5 out of 5 there too. Logic relationships. I was rooting for the prince and the princess to get together, Ryodan and Serene. I loved them both. The like missed connections that they kept getting throughout the book. Oh, it was so good. And then also the logic of his world. I'm sure someone smarter than me could dig at it and try and find plot holes, but to me, everything seemed sound and was also really interesting. So logic relationships, 5, and then enjoyment. Clearly I'm gushing about this book. It was also a 5. So Brandon Sanderson is my 3rd 5-star book of the year. That was 2/3 of my 5-star books of the year. 5 out of 5, and a very high note to go out on. Spreadsheet time. The first book I read was Devil House. I gave that one a 4.5. That one was already on my shelves. I was already planning to read it before my sibling recommended it to me, and I did really enjoy it. There was the weird, like, medieval-y thing in the middle that I could have done without. But overall, it was a really enjoyable narrative, so that one was a 4.5. Second book was Split Tooth, which was just some what is happening story about the mythology and the creation story and people living in northern territories of Canada nowadays. There was maybe some things I didn't get about that book, but what I did get was some intriguing and really enticing what the fuckery. So 4 for that one. Maybe not for the most intelligent reasons, but 4 for me nonetheless. Third book, Milkfed, 3.25. That was the low point of this. Melissa Broder and I are just maybe not compatible reader-writer relationship. And that is fine. Just because my sibling likes an author doesn't mean I have to like that same author, and it doesn't mean that the author's necessarily bad, it just means they're not for me. Milkfed was a very weird book, but not the kind of weird that I enjoy. 3.25, acknowledging it has its merits, but it wasn't for me. And Juliet Naked. I posted a video today, which was my June wrap-up. Literally right before I was sitting down to film this, got a text from my sibling like, I'm dying that you described this as a story about a guy, because it is not about the guy, it is about Annie. That is fair. We do follow Annie's perspective, and I do get what they were saying about it being more about Annie's want for a child than about Duncan and his obsession with this band. Death of the author. I can interpret the work in whatever way I want to interpret the work in, even if that was not the author's intention. And my interpretation is that Duncan is autistic and hyper-focused on this band, and I find that a lot more relatable than Annie, who got into a 15-year relationship with someone who didn't want kids, and then all of a sudden decides she does want kids. Just even more stressed in the movie, which I did watch and didn't really like. Tucker was so much more unlikable in the movie. I was on the fence about Tucker in the book, but he's awful in the movie. 3.75 for Juliet naked. I did enjoy aspects of it, but those aspects were Duncan, the aspect I was not supposed to enjoy about the book. So, 3.5 for Juliet naked. I guess I missed the point about it, but also, my sibling should know that I would not find a narrative about wanting a child to be a relatable narrative. I still vehemently don't want to have one, even if I was in a relationship. Not a narrative I am going to relate to in the way it's intended, but I did enjoy it in the way that I did relate to it. So 3.75 for Juliet naked, even if, according to my sibling, I didn't understand it correctly. And that leaves our last book, Elantris. Just drop everything and only read Brandon Sanderson for the rest of the year, because clearly they're bangers. If you like fantasy, but sometimes maybe find fantasy a little inaccessible because the world building gets too confusing, I think while this did have great world building, it doesn't go over your head. Elantris, 5 out of 5. That puts the average of the 5 recommendations for my sibling at a 4.1, which is more than a half star higher than my year-to-date average of 3.54. Overall, I'm going to call this a success. I got a new 5-star read. I got a 4.5, also a 4, which, given how this year is going, I will take. So if you made it to the end of this video, leave a zombie emoji in the comments for the dead on dead in Elantris. I know they're not technically zombies, but close enough. And if you enjoyed, please like this video and consider subscribing so you can see more of my content. Thank you to my sibling for giving me the recommendations, and thank you for watching. Have a great day! Oops, well,